Hello, friends. Welcome to Anuja's Brainwaves.
Just one day. But the phones are absolutely buzzing between world leaders. You've got Modi talking to Putin, Putin talking to Xi Jinping, Modi even talking to Lula in Brazil.
Right, a real whirlwind.
Exactly. It sounds chaotic, maybe.
Yeah.
But actually, hidden inside those calls, there are these subtle signals, these power plays that are really changing how countries deal with each other. So our mission today, yours and mine, is to sort of pull back the curtain on these conversations. We want to connect them to some big international headlines you might have seen recently.
Okay.
We're talking about a reported arms deal cancellation, shifting relationships between, the big economic groups, and just a really interesting look at how international relations actually works day to day.
The nitty-gritty.
Yeah, the nitty-gritty. We've gone through some really revealing bits from a YouTube transcript that kind of links these things up, plus reports from Reuters and Bloomberg. The idea is to pull out the key insights for you, give you a shortcut to understanding what's really going on.
Sounds good. Where do we start?
Right, let's kick off with that big one. India's Prime Minister Modi and Russia's President Putin. Now, Modi himself tweeted about it, called it a very good and detailed call, said they discussed bilateral stuff, strengthening the India-Russia strategic partnership.
Standard diplomatic language, mostly.
Mostly, yeah. But here's a key bit. Modi actually invited Putin to India later this year for the 23rd India-Russia Annual Summit.
Ah, okay. That's significant.
And it's confirmed, too. Russia's Ministry of Foreign Affairs backed it up. Russian Times reported it. So it's solid.
But what really jumps out from that call, for me anyway, is Modi thanking Putin for a Ukraine update. Now, why does that matter so much?
Okay, yeah. Tell us.
Well, it turns out on the very same day, a U.S. representative, Stephen Witkoff, was in Russia. And so was India's national security advisor, Mr. Doval.
Whoa, okay. Busy day in Moscow.
Right. And it looks like Putin was pretty open about sharing details from his talk with Witkoff, specifically about the U.S.-Russia dialogue on Ukraine, sharing with his Eastern allies. It's kind of like how Trump used to share intel with Western countries.
Huh. So Putin's doing his own sort of debriefing session with his allies.
Seems like it.
And it wasn't just Modi on the call list that day, was it? He also spoke with Xi Jinping from China, Lukashenko from Belarus. Who else?
Tokayev from Kazakhstan, and Mirziyoyev from Uzbekistan, too. A whole series of calls.
Wow.
Exactly. And the readouts, what was said afterwards are pretty revealing. Xi Jinping also thanked Putin for the Ukraine update. He expressed support for a sustainable settlement.
Sustainable settlement, okay.
And from the Russian side, this was apparently taken to mean the U.S.-Russia talks were moving in a, quote, progressive direction. Basically, Russia felt like they were winning, or at least making progress on their terms.
Okay, that raises a huge question then. If Russia is openly briefing allies that talks with the U.S. are going well for Russia, what kind of message does that send globally about the Ukraine conflict?
It's a powerful message, right? It suggests Russia feels diplomatically strong, that maybe the tide is turning in their favor, at least in these negotiations. It definitely complicates the picture for everyone else.
Yeah, especially for countries like India trying to navigate this really tricky balancing act. It just shows the layers involved. But speaking of complex relationships, let's switch gears a bit. Something that seems separate but maybe isn't.
Okay.
This Reuters report that came out claimed India had canceled planned purchases of U.S. weapons.
Ah, yes, I saw that. The P-8Is, right?
Exactly. The Boeing P-8I reconnaissance planes. Big deal, like $3.6 billion worth. And the report also said India's defense minister canceled a trip to the U.S. Sounds pretty dramatic.
It does. But almost immediately, India's Ministry of Defense came out swinging, called the report false, just flat out denied it.
Okay, so a denial. But the sources we looked at mentioned something more complex, like a conspiracy theory.
Well, yeah, it's this idea, this possibility. What if India itself strategically leaked that story to Reuters?
Leaked their own cancellation story. Why?
Think about it. The potential motive is, well, pretty clever, actually. It signals to the U.S., hey, we have other options, and maybe more importantly, you need us as a customer for your defense gear. It's basically India showing its leverage.
So not just denying it, but maybe playing a game, a strategic gambit, as the source put it.
Precisely. A gambit.
Yeah.
It's a way to show independence, flexibility, saying we're not locked in.
But that sounds risky, doesn't it? Playing poker like that with a huge defense partner like the U.S.
Oh, absolutely. High stakes. It's a gamble because you're poking a major power, banking on the idea that you're too important strategically for them to react too harshly. India's position in the Indo-Pacific, it's a calculated risk, definitely.
Yeah.
Designed to assert autonomy.
Okay, that adds another layer entirely. So beyond these one-on-one dealings, Modi's also been working on the group dynamics, right? Like with BRICS.
Yes, exactly.
Which brings us to that call with Brazil's President Lula. Lula's been quite supportive of India, speaking out against tariffs. And they talked about this really ambitious goal, boosting trade between them to $20 billion by 2030.
Yeah, ambitious is the word. Their trade historically hasn't been anywhere near that level.
So is this part of a bigger BRICS push?
It certainly looks that way. BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. And it's interesting, when the U.S. Treasury Secretary was asked about BRICS countries looking for alternatives to the U.S., especially with India hosting the BRICS summit in 2026, she was pretty dismissive.
Dismissive how?
Basically said, yeah, well, most of them still need the U.S., but the numbers tell a kind of different story.
Okay.
If you look at their collective economic weight, BRICS countries together account for about 35.8% of the global economy.
35.8%. Wow. How does that compare to, say, the G7?
Well, the G7, the big established economies like the U.S., U.K., Germany, et cetera, they come in at 29.5%.
So BRICS is already significantly larger economically than the G7.
As a bloc, yeah. It's a pretty stark comparison. China's obviously the heavyweight in BRICS. Its economy is around $17.96 trillion.
Those numbers are quite something. It really makes you rethink the whole developing economies label, doesn't it?
It really does. And it's not just abstract numbers. Think about U.S. dependence. The U.S. exports about $294 billion to BRICS countries, but it imports almost $650 billion from them.
Whoa, that's a massive trade deficit.
Huge. It means the U.S. relies, pretty heavily actually, on cheaper imports from BRICS to keep prices stable back home. So imagine if BRICS countries decided to, coordinate more on their exports, control the supply.
That could cause serious problems for the U.S. economy, like inflation.
Potentially, yeah. It highlights a real vulnerability. It's not just about power politics. It's about who controls the flow of goods.
Okay, so that economic muscle is definitely something to watch, which actually leads us into another slightly tense moment we found in the sources, some recent friction between Modi and former President Trump.
The G7 incident.
Yeah, reported by Bloomberg. It goes back to that G7 meeting in Canada. Trump left early because of the Israel-Iran situation heating up. Then he called PM Modi, invited him to the U.S.
Right. But the key moment, according to the source material, is what happened next. Modi apparently politely declined the invitation.
Declined? Why?
He cited a prior commitment, a public meeting back in Odisha. But here's the kicker. Modi also reportedly told Trump, essentially, that the U.S. did not arrange our ceasefire.
Ooh, that sounds like a direct criticism. How did Trump react?
Well, reportedly, he was angered by the refusal and probably by the comment, too. And the very next day, he apparently invited Pakistan's army chief, Asim Munir, to the White House.
Wow. Okay, that feels like direct retaliation. How did India take that?
India objected very strongly. They saw it as the U.S. deliberately undermining Pakistan's democracy by giving legitimacy to the military chief. And the implication was, that maybe the U.S. likes a bit of instability in India's neighborhood.
So a diplomatic snub leads to a move perceived as undermining regional stability. That really shows how fragile things can be.
Yeah.
How does an incident like that echo in the U.S.-India relationship long-term?
It definitely sows seeds of mistrust, doesn't it? For India, it's maybe a sign they can't just blindly follow the U.S. lead. They asserted their independence, declined the invite. But then the response, inviting Pakistan's military head, shows the U.S. is willing to push back, use its own leverage. It just highlights this constant tension. India wanting strategic autonomy, the U.S. wanting reliable partners, and the friction that can cause.
It really is a complex dance.
Absolutely. And putting all these pieces together today, the calls, the arms deal story, the BRICS economics, the Trump incident, it paints a picture of India's foreign policy as incredibly multi-layered, very dynamic. They're clearly juggling these complex ties with major powers, Russia, the U.S., China, while always trying to carve out space for their own strategic interests. You see it in the diplomacy with Putin and Lula, that potential gambit with the Reuters leak, challenging those economic assumptions. It's a sophisticated game they're playing.
A very sophisticated game, and one with potentially huge consequences for the global stage. So maybe this is the thought to leave everyone with today. We've seen India's growing economic clout within BRICS. We've seen this willingness to push back even against traditional allies. Could that upcoming 2026 BRICS summit hosted in India be, a genuine turning point?
Turning point how?
Could that be the moment where these nations collectively decide, okay, let's really use our combined weight to assert some serious influence over global trade, maybe even challenge the dollar's dominance more directly? Could it fundamentally reshape the economic map for everyone, including the U.S.? What connections are you making now?